right, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we always start out by saying the prayer and then pledge allegiance. So if you would, just stand with me as we go to prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity to gather here today, God. We pray that you will just bestow wisdom and knowledge beyond our years upon us today, God, as we make decisions that not only impact our residents now, God, but future generations. Lord, we pray a special prayer, God, for protection of our military members, those that are represented here today, as well as the others that are deployed, both foreign and abroad, God. We pray, Lord, for our first responders. God, we pray for all the men and women that are here today, God, and we pray that you'll place a hedge of protection around the families that are represented today, God. And we pray these things to you in Jesus Christ's precious name. Amen. Amen. Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, the first item we're going to ask, we'll start to my far right with Commissioner Peach, if there are any add-ons or modifications for today's agenda.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, just a brief information item.
All right, I just want to add that at the end of admin.
Or at the beginning.
All right. All right, we'll get it right after public forum.
That'll work.
All right, Commissioner Salter.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
And Commissioner Lynch.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Staff?
None.
All right. Thank you for being here. All right. With that, we will approve today's agenda with one information add-on right after public forum. All right. For information only, we have a proclamation on Thursday, May the 9th, for Law Day. And we also have a information item for Escambia Santa Rosa Regional Advanced Traffic Management System, otherwise known as the ATMS. We're going to get an update presented by West Florida Regional Planning Council here on our Thursday, May 9th meeting. All right, with that, we start every meeting with public forum. This is for if anyone here would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. If you have a question or concern that is not on the published agenda today, now would be the time to come forward. All right, hearing none, we'll close public forum, and we will move to Commissioner Cole's add-on for information.
Mr. Chairman, just wanted to bring it to the board. A few nights ago, Commissioner Parker, Commissioner Soler, and myself attended the first Lead Academy FFA banquet, and we, as a board of commissioners, for our support of the FFA over the years, were all five of us became honorary chapter members and honorary members of the FFA organization, and they presented us with this nice plaque. So you guys are all members of the FFA now, so that'll be nice to pigs and cows and stuff like such as that. But it was very, very honored to receive that award the other night. And Lead Academy is doing phenomenal things, as the other three FFA organizations here in the county, with young people, learning all about agriculture and how it affects our country. And most of these young people are brought up in the agriculture area, but we're starting to see more and more folks, young people in the FFA that aren't really, folks that live on a farm or something. They just have an interest in the quality of agriculture in our country, and it's great to see these young folks get involved and do so much. And I especially like hearing, as they open their meetings, each one name their station and what it represents. It's a fine thing to go to. And if anybody out there past FFA members? No? Okay, good. Well, we got a few. Great. All right. So that was quite an honor, and wanted to let everybody else know that they were also part of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. That was it was a good evening. All right, now we're going to move on to, we have a presentation today. Captain Bowditch, I
So we're going to slide that at 9 o'clock. So
Perfect.
we'll just start
All
with the Economic Development and Admin, and then when
gonna
Skipper
move it
gets
at
here,
that.
we'll come back to that at 9.
It's always nice when the boss is late, makes you feel good, you know? So, anyway, it happens to me all the time. All right, we will address the proclamation then after that. Correct? Dan, is that good?
Yeah, we'll
Address
do it all then at 9.
All right, we have one item under the Economic Development Committee. For that, I'll go to Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like you said, one item, and that's discussion of appointment of Anna Weaver, United Bank, and Mike Johnson, Gold Ring Gulf Distributing, to the Career Source Rosa Board of Directors as Santa Rosa County private sector representatives. I know both of these individuals personally, and they're very high-quality people, so without discussion, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Mr. Chairman,
Consent agenda.
Commissioner Lynch.
I'll be abstaining from this vote. Escarosa rents space in a commercial property that I own.
All right, so noted. Hearing no other objection, that item is moved to Thursday's consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, next we have the Administrative Committee. First item is we have 4 event requests. These include requests to utilize Benny Russell's Park. We have a 5K along Oriole Beach Road to use some right-of-way, a VFW request to utilize some green space at Navarre Park, and Pace High School project graduation has a noise variance request for a program they're putting on. It's all listed there in the agenda. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the public or fellow commissioners on these items? Hearing none, we will move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 2 is a revised rate resolution. This is a discussion of resolution amending the Health Department fee schedule as recommended by the County Health Department Administrator. Information is there in your backup. Do we have any questions or comments from any members of the public or fellow commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 3 is a discussion of approval of the subrecipient agreement with the Nature Conservancy for implementation of the funded Restore Act Oyster Habitat Restoration Project. You got the information there in your backup. We have Erica if there's any questions. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. I'm sure the board's aware, but there's also been a estuary program stood up in the 3-county area. Baldwin County is included with Perdido Bay and, of course, Escambia and Santa Rosa County. And 2 questions I have. This is $300,000. Before we move forward with it or approve it, I'd like to review the scope of work again and see how those 2 might overlap or how they can be combined. And the other thing, it's a multi-year implementation. Is this $300,000 expected to carry every year, or how long will the program continue? I probably should have done a little homework on this myself beforehand, but
It's part of our multi-year implementation plan. This is a one-time $300,000 grant, though, for the Oyster Project. This is, I think, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is our local component that's going to fund this. There's another oyster project in East Bay that's kind of going to follow on the coat heels of this one, which is a much, much larger, more significant program that is funded by the Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund. Is that right? And it's a multi-million-dollar oyster restoration and habitat project. This does mapping, and it sort of lays the foundation for that project to come.
okay. And kind of had a feel for that, but I wanted to make sure the biggest thing, and I've expressed this before, I don't want to see redundancy.
No,
If we get
I
this
agree,
program
yeah.
stood up, all this information should not be proprietary. It should go to the estuary program. And then in the future, when we initiate this other program, possibly, work with the Nature Conservancy, or it could even roll into the estuary program. Because the estuary program, the funding that's there for that now is just for the personnel, the office, everything. There's really no we're not going to get any actual boots on the ground work done, or boots in the water, I guess I should say, work done. So in the future, I just want to see us combine those programs, and certainly want to be cognizant if it's Santa Rosa County money and it happens to roll to the estuary program, that it stays in Santa Rosa County, because one of my beefs with that program was it was named Perdido Pensacola Bay Estuary Program, and why wasn't it Perdido Pensacola Bay Blackwater Bay Estuary Program? And if I got a beef about it, I think some of our citizens do, but I'm currently chair of that, and I'll stay involved, and I'll make sure that, and as Erica will and our other people that are on that staff, we're going to get our fair share of that program. So.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. And yes, sir, I certainly understand your concerns. This project and this application were actually initiated prior to the estuary program grant award. We do have an executed BOCC approved agreement with Treasury Department for this project.
Yeah.
So the subrecipient agreement is the next necessary step to carry out this executed award.
Okay. Well, okay, let's move forward then. I just felt like I needed to get all that out, and we all be on the same page.
Absolutely.
About it, get it on record and stuff.
Thank you, Eric.
And that's a good idea to get things out, because this project was proposed 4 or 5 years ago. It's taken so long for us to get here that we probably should try to give a little more background about the individual projects as they come forward, because it has been so long in the works.
Well, and as was the estuary program, and it asked for that. And at the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, at first it looked like there'd be one area that got this estuary program, and actually 3 areas in the Northwest Florida received it. So, am I right on that? Wasn't there 3 different estuary programs stood up instead of just one?
The Restore Pot 2 issued an RFP a couple of years ago for to stand up an estuary program, and that was a competitive RFP. We won that award, so we are the only estuary program funded through Restore Pot 2. The other estuaries in the Panhandle thought the estuary program concept was such a good idea and would be so beneficial for their communities that they were able to pull together other funding sources to establish their own estuary programs. We're a little bit ahead of the curve, I believe. I don't think they have started the hiring process for their director position the way that we have, but it's being looked at as a regional effort, and there's intense communication and coordination amongst the Panhandle counties related to the estuary program. So if there's any information that you need, I'd be happy to pull that for you. We speak often to make sure that we're all headed in the same direction. But the Pensacola Perdido Bay Estuary Program is the winner, if you will, of that competitive RFP process.
And Dave and I sit on the board, and this, I think Wednesday, we have a conference call to select the director of that program, because the person that was first selected declined the offer. So, and there again, we can't knock on each other's door and make sure we're all informed. But okay, anything I'm missing that we need to bring up?
No. Again, in terms of the communication, we have Nacy in our department, in Grant's department, and Shelley Alexander as well, and we work very closely with the Escambia County. There's constant coordination. If at any time you'd like an update on all of that, we'd be happy to provide that to you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think I would add specifically here, this is a subrecipient agreement between us and the Nature Conservancy. As Erica pointed out, the federal grant agreement has already been executed between Treasury and Santa Rosa County. And so the Nature Conservancy has been gone through an evaluation as a subrecipient, and they've been identified as a low-risk subrecipient. So we're sort of just passing through, and they're going to execute the project. We'll retain some funds, small amount of funds for the administrative oversight to pay for the staff time.
All right, thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. All right, item number 5 is the Item number 4 is the Value Adjustment Board. This is discussion of approval to appoint 2 commissioners and 1 homestead property owner to the Value Adjustment Board. Last year, it was Commissioner Cole, myself, and Buddy Page as our citizen. Mr. Page has expressed interest in staying on that. I have no problem doing that as well as chairman. Would ask if Commissioner Cole wanted to stay, or if Commissioner Salter wanted to do it as vice chairman. I didn't know if, either way. Just looking for a volunteer here, guys. All right. I think Commissioner Cole.
I'll go ahead and volunteer. Don's
good
looking
at
at me and give me the EY, so I better go ahead and volunteer.
All right. We will make those same appointments as we did last year. Commissioner Cole, myself, and Buddy Page. So hearing no further discussion on that item, we will move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 5 is the Justice Assistance Grant Certificate of Participation. This is a discussion of approval of Certificate of Participation for the 2018 Florida Department of Law Enforcement Burn Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $49,499, and designation of Marcia Arnold of the Sheriff's Office as the point of contact. Are there any questions or concerns on this item from any members of the public or fellow commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 6 is a request for lien forgiveness. This is a discussion of request for Martha Sizemore for the reduction of the interest due on an abatement lien. Do we have any representative here today to speak on that? Yeah, absolutely. If you will come forward, and I'll also go ahead and make note as you come forward. I will be abstaining from voting on this, but I may make a comment or two just for informational purposes for the board. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you will, if you could just let these gentlemen know your request and sort of the background on that. They have very limited information, and I'll fill in any blanks that need to be filled in if you need help.
We weren't aware of this lien
And give her your name and
Crystal
address.
Maurice Sizemore.
All right, you're good. Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of Martha Sizemore, widow of E.P. Phil Sizemore, who owned the property that's up for sale. We weren't aware of this lien until we put the property up for sale. My dad handled everything. We weren't aware of this, but we were washed away during Hurricane Ivan. We used to live in Garcon Point, and we lost all of our correspondence, so I don't know if that's part of the problem. But my daddy passed away 3 years ago. You might remember him. His name was Phil Sizemore. He served at the county sheriff's office for 30 years. When he passed away, we were left with a big mess. He handled everything. So if we had been aware of it, we would have surely addressed it. Therefore, we're asking for forgiveness of interest, at least, on the lien.
And Ms. Sizemore, I'm going to jump in, and you just correct me if I say something that's incorrect real quick, as I tell these gentlemen this.
I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional.
That's no problem. You just correct me if I say anything wrong here. So this was a lien placed back in 2001 on actually a different piece of property, but sort of cross-collateralized there, that lien. The lien is actually also, another important informational fact, is it's due to expire in 2021. Whether they pay the lien or don't pay the lien, it will expire and terminate. And Roy can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what our county attorneys told me, there is no way for us to renew that lien. So in theory, if they pay nothing between now and 2021, it'll go away and we'll never collect that. Is that correct, Roy?
Correct.
Okay. Mrs. Sizemore, her mother, is bedridden. She is unable to leave the house. The reason, again, I abstained is I'm actually representing a party that was trying to purchase this property. It came up during title work, and from what they shared with me, I guess she was looking to use this money to put a roof on her house over in Escambia County. And so after the family reached out to Roy, what they've asked for is forgiveness of the interest of the lien, and then they would pay the lien. I believe it's $9,200, but currently the interest has it to where the total lien amount would be $29,000, which is greater than the value of both pieces of property put together. And so that's what she's here today for, and obviously having an interest in the transaction as well. I'll be abstaining from the vote on that. But if you have anything further to add, or if anybody has any questions, Mrs. Sizemore or myself, I'll be glad to answer them. Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. I'm concerned about setting a precedence, and I appreciate his service as a sheriff
Thank you.
deputy, but this started in September of 2001, and he was certainly,
We had no idea. My daddy handled
I
everything.
understand, but, you know. it
He
should-
didn't keep Mother or I apprised of the financial affairs. And when he passed away, he left a big mess because he had cancer,
I understand.
and some bills were left unpaid, but he insisted on handling it himself.
Okay.
Now my mother's in
What's the a-
congestive heart failure, and this
What's
is
the
going to
asking
kill her.
price- What's the asking price for the property that's for sale?
She's trying to sell both pieces of property.
Yes.
I only have knowledge of the one. I know it's $18,000. I'm not sure of the other one. I can't.
One is Plant Avenue, and the other is Avalon Boulevard. Well, Avalon and Romana.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably around $9,000 or $10,000. So both properties put together would probably fall shy of what's actually owed on the lien.
And, okay, and the balance at the time of the lien placement was $9,540?
That's correct.
I assure you, if we had known about this, we would have addressed it immediately.
I understand. Okay, I don't have any questions. So.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lynch?
I have had the same concerns as Commissioner Cole about waiving the interest due, because the county was out $9,540 back when this lien was originally placed, and the county has incurred expenses carrying that amount over the past 18 years. So I wouldn't support a complete waiver of the interest, but I would support a reduction in interest, because it was 12% when it was originally filed, and governmental borrowing rates were probably 2% during that time, especially after the recession hit and interest rates went low. So I would support, if Roy says that we can do that, I would support a reduction in the interest rate to whatever our prime borrowing rate was at that time, or as far back as we can go find it. Probably 2% or 2.5%, I would imagine.
We can do some research in regard to that and come up with a figure, and the provision of the land development regulations allow the Board of County Commissioners to reduce or waive the interest on any nuisance abatement lien by vote in any regular or special meeting. So you have the ability to reduce the interest rate.
Okay. So I would support that. That would cut that interest charge down substantially, because 12% compounded annually, really, as you can see, it's tripled the amount that was owed. So if we went down to a 2 or 3% interest rate, the amount owed would be slashed by probably 60 or 70%, if not more.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Commissioner Cole.
Through the Chair, Commissioner Lynchard, I would support that rather than spending more staff time on it. Would you support just setting at 3%? Be done with it?
I would, yes.
All right. I'd make that motion to carry till, can we just move it today and be done with it, or do we need to carry it till Thursday?
Let's do the figures and come back on Thursday with the amount we'd be asking for a waiver.
All right. Well, I'll be out on Thursday, but should I make that motion knowing I'll be out? I guess.
We can just move it to Thursday's regular agenda, and I'm guessing, I'm looking at Jane, she's probably already punching the calculator. Jane, we should be able to have that back by Thursday, those numbers. All right, thank you. All right. All right, it sounds like we're going to move it to Thursday, and I think you've heard the will of at least 2 commissioners on the board about reducing that rate. And so if you will, before you leave out today, if you'll give your name and phone number to the young lady there on the end, she'll probably call you as soon as she has that figure, and that way you'll know, and she'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming. All right. I did. We moved it to Thursday's regular agenda. All right, item number 7 is the Restore Act MYIP Amendment Number 1. This goes back to a discussion we had earlier this year. This is a discussion and approval of revisions to the initial MYIP, including the commencement of the 45-day public comment and review period. Again, we have this information in the backup. This sounds like it's basically putting on paper the discussion we had there with Erica and staff, and some of the comments about modifying a few of those projects, as well as the deliverables for the Discovery Center. Do we have any questions or comments from any members of the public on this item? Do we have any questions or comments from any of my fellow commissioners? Commissioner Lynchard?
Just one question. I see on here, we have modification of deliverables and budget for the Discovery Center. Our conversation, there was an alternative put forward that if Treasury was not open to modification of the deliverables and budget, we would just pull that project and refund the grant. Is that still permissible under what's in front of us?
Yes, sir. This is what we would request and publish for public comment, for the 45-day public comment period. We haven't gotten any specific feedback from Treasury yet on that modification, but that would still be allowable.
As long as that was still an option, then, okay.
Questions, further questions?
I think we're good then, Nancy. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you. All right. If we have no further questions or comments, hearing none, we'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda. Did Captain Bowditch make it in yet? He's out there? All right. Yeah, yes, sir, if you will. And that way we can have the opportunity to hear from him and get all you ladies and gentlemen out of here before what could be a little lengthy discussion. Hey, good morning. And I didn't say this earlier, but when we went right into the meeting and you weren't here, but I absolutely want to say not only to obviously you gentlemen, but also all the gentlemen and ladies here behind us that are in uniform, and even those that aren't, that are serving, on behalf of not only our board, but also all the citizens we represent, we humbly say thank you so much for your willingness to serve our great nation and go and do the things that you could be called upon to do so that we can enjoy our time with our families. So again, thank you, and thank you so much for being here. With that, good morning, Captain. Good morning. And we are excited to hear about the update of the great things going on out there at Whiting Field.
All right.
Just pull that thing up there, and you'll be all right.
We appreciate having us here today, and for everyone we want to actually send our thanks to the county for everything you guys do here. As we know, Santa Rosa County is second to none in the United States for their support of the military, support of NAS Whiting Field and all of our outlying fields, and everything that we do here to train the world's best aviators. And we appreciate that. We appreciate all of the support that you've given us as the county commissioners, and everything you do to ensure that our base will be here for a long time to come. And I'd also like to thank both the Chamber of Commerce along with the county for our upcoming military appreciation picnic later this month, and I hope to see all of you out here for that. We're very excited with a new helicopter coming online in the next couple of years, and I'll let Captain Rosa speak on that as the Commodore Training Air Wing 5. We do have some flag leadership coming out to visit us here shortly. The end of this week, as we have all the aviation flag officers down in Pensacola this week for some training. And so my boss, Admiral Mays, will be coming up to visit, his first visit since he's taken over as Commander of Region Southeast. So we're looking forward to that, and we appreciate everything you do. Captain Rosa.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that message. And, you know, Trade Wing 5's annual pilot production of about 1,300 pilots couldn't be done without the support of the county and local community. We're absolutely grateful for the amount of support that we get from you all for our mission. In addition to that, and probably more importantly, is the support the local community provides for the families. All right, that's key. The excellent education benefits, the incredible neighborhoods that our families get to reside in is tremendous. All right, and that goes a long way to supporting our mission. There is no place I've ever been stationed that is more supportive of the families and the mission than Santa Rosa County. So I really appreciate y'all's support, and Y'all maybe didn't think you were going to get anything from me this morning, but I've got some propaganda I'll pass out to you here in a minute, just as a reminder of the mission that you all support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, sorry. As soon as we get Captain Rosa finished, we've got a proclamation that we'd like to read, and this is for the National Military Appreciation Month. And so I'll read that, but we're going to wait to get our propaganda. No, we're absolutely. I'm going to tell you, it's our pleasure to get to go around, and I know recently, even as he finishes up, I saw some of the charts that staff was getting ready for Commissioner Peach, and I believe is going to talk on a career day, and I've had the opportunity to do that a few times, and we love just getting to brag on the operational side of Whiting Field and as well as the economic side. I mean, y'all are such a blessing to our community, from the economy to the fact of just knowing that the pride that we have of getting to say, hey, look at the amount of training and the new folks that are coming through there. And I know not everybody out here is aviators, but I can assure you it's just like the county operation. They couldn't do their job without each and every one of you doing your job. So again, we appreciate all of you. With that, I'll read this proclamation from Santa Rosa County. Whereas the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness given by God and enumerated in our Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, enjoyed by every citizen of the United States, are direct results of the bloodshed and continued vigilance given by the United States Armed Forces over the history of our great nation. And whereas the sacrifices that such members of the United States Armed Forces and of the family members that support them have preserved the liberties that have enriched this nation, making it unique in the world community. And whereas the United States Congress in 2004 passed a resolution proclaiming May as National Military Appreciation Month, calling all Americans to remember those who gave their lives in defense of freedom and to honor the men and women of all our armed services who have served and are now serving our country, together with their families. And whereas the months of May and June were selected for this display of patriotism because during these months we celebrate Victory in Europe Day, Military Spouse Day, Loyalty Day, Armed Forces Day and Week, National Day of Prayer, Memorial Day, Navy Day, Army Day, and Flag Day. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of May 1st through June 14, 2019, as a special time to show appreciation for our military and proclaim it as National Military Appreciation Month in Santa Rosa County, and encourage all citizens to show gratitude by the appropriate display of flags and ribbons during the designated period. This is passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County, Florida, this 6th day of May, 2019, signed by myself, Sam Parker, Chairman, Board of County Commissioners. With that, I know if anybody has any comments, now we'll have them. If not, I know we always look forward to Commissioner Lynchard's main job, reason we keep him around on the board, is he's in charge of photographs. So he'll have us come down there and have all y'all get together, and we'll present you with this proclamation and take a photo. But, all right. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, I used to be able to say I was the only sailor on the Board of Commissioners, which I still am, but I'm not the only one at the dais anymore. So I do have two guys that I get to work with now that I certainly enjoy working with. But I got to say, being an old school sailor, I was really disappointed when you guys walked in the door. Here's the skipper and the Commodore, and I heard nobody say attention on deck. So, hey, let's over that. So how many enlisted personnel do we have with us today? All right. And how many on their first term? All right. Well, I came down here as an E2, 4 years, in 2.5 years I sewed on E5, and came from a broken home in Pittsburgh, and here's where I'm at today, a business owner and a county commissioner. So the world is your oyster, and you guys got a great start in the United States military, and I tell people all the time I owe where I'm at today to the 4 years I served in the Navy. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Peach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the commissioner representing the Air Force Blue, my hat's off to my Navy counterparts, and I thank you all for your service. It was a short 27 and a half years for you youngsters out there. It goes by fast. Grab every opportunity you have. We're proud of you. We're happy to have you here, and thank you for your service.
Commissioner Salter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you all for being here today, and thank you for your service. I'm going to put our Assistant County Administrator on the spot. Skipper, we've been working on trying to get a sign at the entrance to Whiting Field for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I think we're very close. Mr. Murray, would you give us an update, please?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We are very close. Paperwork is back to FDOT, and we're probably looking within a month, maybe 5 weeks or so.
It's only been a 3-year project, but we're getting there. Government moves real fast. But thank you all for your service. And all you young men and women out there, thank you all. We appreciate what you do.
I think the moral of the story is sometimes county government is not high-speed, low-drag. So, Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you, and I also applaud your service, appreciate everything you do for your country as well as your local community. We appreciate the involvement that Whiting Field has had over the years in helping make Santa Rosa County a better place to live. So thank you for everything you do.
Mr. Chairman, one more time, please.
Commissioner Salter.
Since Commissioner Peace did what he did. Any Army guys here today? I didn't think so. Thank you. Go Army.
All right. With that, we're going to come down there, and if we could get a photograph, and then we'll get you ladies and gentlemen back to doing what y'all do best.
Everybody come on up, please.
That is, I gotta say, that's one of the better parts of serving on the board, especially we're just so blessed to have those folks here in our community every day, especially for me. My boys love getting to see the uniforms. All right, item number 8 is a code enforcement discussion. This is a discussion of recent enforcement of Article 8, which had to deal with signage in Santa Rosa County's commercial corridors. I think it would be appropriate. We'll lead off with Dan, and then I know we've got a few citizens here to speak as well, so thank you for coming.
Yes, sir. I included a memo there that's in your backup that's everybody's read. I just wanted to lead off, I guess, first with the Article 8 signage out of the Land Development Code, just the lead section on sign regulations, just a couple of excerpts from that. The purpose of this article is to provide the minimum control of signs necessary to promote the health, safety, and general welfare by lessening hazards to pedestrians and vehicular traffic, by preserving property values, by preventing unsightly and detrimental development that would detract from the community and lead to economic decline and blight, by preventing signs from reaching such excessive size or numbers that they obscure one another to the detriment of all concerned, by securing certain fundamentals of design that would strengthen the community's economic base, and by preserving the rights of free speech. So that is the lead into our sign code, and what follows then is about 15 pages of rules and regulations on size of sign, on-premise sign, off-premise sign, wall signs, square feet allowed, some specifics for real estate signs, etc. And what came up was the issue of prohibited signs in this case. And so in the memo, I highlight a complaint that was received. Code enforcement visited over 100 businesses on Highway 98 and Highway 90 where prohibited signs were in place. 87 of those property owners complied and removed their signs. Upon follow-up, 20 citations, notices of violations were issued to the property owners that elected not to comply with the current sign ordinance. And this is not the only thing code enforcement does. I just included a couple of additional facts in there. The abatement process, there are 39 open abatements. We opened bids last week on 4 properties. Similar to the lien that was placed, we're going to take care of some blighted properties, place a lien on the property. And then pits is an issue that it comes up every year. The environmental department inspects those pits, provides a report to code enforcement, and well over 40 of those current active borrow pits in the county are not in compliance with the necessary requirements of the Land Development Code, and one of our code enforcement officers has been focusing on that for the last month as well. And that's on top of the regular caseload, which is about 15 to 20 calls a day, resulting in over 1,000 cases a year. So that's just as background on an issue that I know that has caught a lot of attention in the media as well as on social media. That's all I had, sir.
Thank you, Dan. All right, I know we've got several folks here to speak. I don't want you to run over each other coming to the podium. So if you will, just when you get here, please remember so that she can have it for the notes. Just state your name and address.
James Dabney, 9200 Military Trail, Navarre, Florida, 32566. Hey, I'm here on behalf of basically the small businesses. I've been blessed. I hadn't had to come back up here in about 3 years. I kind of feel special, you know. So normally I was a rule breaker and really stepped out and really didn't abide by the rules. In the last 3 years especially, I had a county commissioner ask me to try to follow the rules a little bit better and do what we need to do to make the small business area in Navarre better and abide by the rules. You know, we've been able to succeed as small business owners based off of, you know, our ability to advertise our businesses, do what we need to do to get the word out that we're having a special that weekend, or vice versa. Whatever we needed the signs for, we would put them out there for. And I guess here recently, and I've been in business for 15 years, here recently the county's, I guess, come up with a new department. You guys are now going to be more strict on everything that's going on with that. And we all, you know, as small business owners, we agree, you know, if there's something that needs to be done, we're willing to do it. But you're talking about signs as a distraction, and I didn't hear everything he said. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's a First Amendment right for us to be able to use our property for our means. If our signs are distracting you or distracting a motorist driving down the highway, or it's a public safety issue, I can see that. I can't see where a sign is a feather sign or a flag. You know, you're allowed to put an American flag on your property, which I 100% support what we do here in America, but that same flag waves. So you want to pick on one thing, but yet you don't want to pick on another. You go to ball fields that's throughout the Santa Rosa County area. I'm a big, huge supporter. Navarre High School. Go out there. You see my name on every billboard out there. But you see a banner attached to a fence. You walk right outside this front door. Santa Rosa County property, you guys have a banner sitting there directing the cars to your drive-through. But yet you guys have now come up and said, hey, we're coming after the small business. Hey, but guess what? Small business supports your taxes that you guys look for every single year. Oh, by the way, we're going to raise taxes. You're probably not going to get much support from any small business when you come after us for a sign violation, and then you ask us to promote your sales taxes and all this. I'm just saying, you guys want us to do all this stuff. We need some type of leeway on signs. I mean, there's 15 pages of sign violations that could be possibly brought up. 15 pages? I don't read every single one of them. I know quite a few of them. I mean, I've gotten my citations. There's people out here today that's got citations or warnings. You know, I probably got one sitting down right now in the post office coming from Santa Rosa County. I went and got it. You know, send me the ticket. I got to promote my business. I have employees that I have to pay. I have to pay payroll. I have to pay my county property taxes to the sum of about $57,000 a year. Okay? But yet, come to me and say, you got to take down your sign. Your sign's in violation. Because it's waving, you know. What about the guy who's driving down the road smoking a cigarette and he drops on the floor? That's a distraction. What about the radio that the guy's driving in the car that's a distraction? You know, cell phones. Come on, guys. It's a flag. It's secured in the ground. It's tied down. You know, it's a wind feather. It's a temporary billboard that the guys can have. They can go out there and change the lettering in it for their means. We don't have the money like McKenzie Motors does over here to put up 17 signs that say used cars. You know, hey, I live in a glass. I don't live in a. You know, I'm not a perfect person. I don't live in a. I live in a glass house. I can't throw stones. But don't come after me and expect me to stand back and go, hey, we agree with what you're saying, or I agree with what you're saying, because I'm not that guy, and y'all know me. You know, work with us, do what you need to do, have a special meeting, do what we need to do. But, you know, I'm that guy that's going to drive around and say, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And I'll give, you think 1,000 reports is a lot? I bet you I can come up with a lot more than 1,000 a year. Because I'm that guy that's going to say, if you make one do it, you better make every single one of us do it. And it's not a threat, and you know me, guys. Bob knows me, Dave knows me, Sam knows me, Mr. Salter knows me, Mr. Lynchard knows me. You know, all I'm saying is, guys, we need to work together. We're here for you guys. We work for you, essentially, at the end of the day, and you work for us. Without us, the people who pay your taxes, pay the property taxes, raise money through the county to bring you more taxes, and then you want to come after us for signs, I disagree. And I thank you for your time, and I hope I don't come across the wrong way, because, you know, I am pretty strong-headed. Most of y'all know that. So I just hope I can work with you guys and try to get this taken care of and come to an agreement, a sensible agreement, to get this handled. Thank you.
No, thank you, James. Go ahead. Just for, as you come forward, anybody that hasn't attended one of our meetings before, sort of just procedurally how we normally do it. I know you really haven't got to see any items that have had any discussion to speak of today, but we'll hear from all the citizens, and then the commissioners will ask any questions or have discussion period. I just wanted to lay that out there. Good morning. If you will just again give your name and address.
My name is Eric Vines. I'm at 4977 Wabash Pine Court in Pace, 32571. I own a small business called Cellular Nerd. I grew up in Santa Rosa County. Parents moved there in 1984, very connected to the community in Navarre and love that area. I was a rule breaker in the beginning. You know, I didn't understand the codes behind the signs, and in the very beginning, I was probably guilty of sticking some on telephone poles and things like that, and I've learned that's wrong. But I felt slightly picked on by the county, specifically Nathan Bell, because I know when you guys did the feather flag thing, it was the very first stop that he made with a huge grin. You know, the guy has tried to come at me every chance that he had. And what I don't understand about the county code is when if I have a customer that I did a good job for, and they want one of my yard signs to put in their yard to say, hey, this guy did a good job, like many, many businesses do, I can't do that. When I have a property owner that wants my sign on their property because they're proud of the job that I did, I can't do that. I have to, from talking to code enforcement, I have to apply for permits and do all this other stuff. I have to have a licensed contractor build a snipe sign, for lack of any other way to put it, and that makes no sense to me. First year in Santa Rosa County, did $300,000. I want to grow my business in Santa Rosa County, and I honestly have got to the point with code enforcement to where I've thought about moving the business out of Santa Rosa County next year just because I feel kind of personally attacked by code enforcement. You know, they tell me I can't have signs out, and then they come out and put a bright yellow sign that's the same exact colors of mine right in front of where I'm doing business at to announce the public hearing. You know, it's, you know, say as I do, not do as I say. You know, it doesn't make sense to me why you can come and stick a sign right in front of my business, but I can't put one on private property with written permission of the property owner, when it's not an off-site directional sign or anything like that. It's just a sign saying this guy did a good job. But then I can partner with a nonprofit and put my sign out all year long. The codes are so misleading, because I mean that's the next step for me if I have to, is partnering with a nonprofit, because your code tells me I can do that. You know, doing a fundraiser at the bottom of my sign makes that legal, and that doesn't make sense to me. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Paul Ruiz, 9575 Navarre Parkway, Navarre. I did receive a citation for having the flags up. They did give a verbal warning, and it turns out that a couple of the flags got put back up without me knowing. I got a citation. Not a big problem. But the main part I want to say is understand about regulations. I'm 26 years, Air Force retired. But not being able to have the feather flags hurts my business, period. There's no way around it. Now, I can understand regulating that they be serviceable, just like our American flag needs to be serviceable. It needs to be presentable. And sometimes you drive down 98 and you see people flew their flags until it's just tattered and looks bad. It makes the community look bad. I get that. So as far as regulations, let us have the flags, because it's going to help our business, and it's going to help us get tax dollars to give to you guys to make this community better. Let's just look at it with some common sense, and don't hurt our business by not allowing us to fly them. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dan Nicious, 7004 Navarre Parkway. I own D&B Bobcat, 98 signs. Automotive shop, same thing. We fly the feather flags, try to support everything. Everybody wants taxes, just piggybacking everything. I mean, it lets people know you're open, you're there for business, it's not hurting us. I mean, if you want distraction, jump in my dump truck with me, let's go. That's where the distractions, people on their cell phones. I mean, that's way more than saying that our flags are distracting. I mean, they see that open for breakfast, open for, you know, James is now serving breakfast, or cellular, I broke my phone this morning, you know, same, just let's work with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody else that wanted to come up and that hasn't spoken already? All right, hearing none, I'll open it to commissioners. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and go first. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was probably the loudest, or one of the loudest with staff, as far as changing to an enforcement policy rather than just a compliance policy. And maybe I should have read the land development code a little better. So don't blame staff, don't blame enforcement. If you want somebody to blame, I guess blame me for what's going on. But my intent was not to what occurred with the signs, and their faults, my fault for perhaps not reading the code long enough and hard enough. My intent was for derelict vessels, derelict automobiles, derelict housing, tattered signs, and the snipe signs that are on public property. You know, I'll buy your house, I'll wash your car, I'll mow your grass, nailed to sign, nailed to trees, nailed to telephone poles in the public right-of-ways. That was my concern, certainly not to involve businesses and hurt businesses, and that's why last week at this time I stayed on the phone with Dan for a couple days until we could pull back on that temporarily until today's meeting. I'd like to see us continue with our enforcement. However, on Section 8.0900, you know, somehow omit the first A through D. But, you know, when you look at E, it's signs that are posted, painted, or otherwise affixed to a tree or utility pole. I even heard y'all agree with that. Signs that are not, F is not securely fixed or to a substantial structure. I heard James and everybody say, hey, you know, our signs are there, they're not going anywhere, and certainly if a storm's coming, I'm smart enough to walk out and take it down because it cost me $300. I don't want it, you know, half a mile down the road and tore to pieces. Signs which are not in good repair and may create a hazard condition when they are abandoned. I've heard everybody that spoke agree with that. So, and then signs which are illegal under state laws and regulations. We don't have any control over state law, so we're going to continue to enforce what the state wants us to enforce. But gentleman mentioned if somebody's satisfied with your work and wants to take a sign and put it in their personal front yard, I don't have a problem with that. I kind of agree with it. You know, you see signs all the time. If a pool company's working in your backyard, they'll put a sign out front, you know, being, you know, this pool being built by. So I don't see a difference in that, or saying, you know, you fixed my, you know, this guy did a good job fixing my cell phone, or such as that. And I don't think it'll be overwhelming. I don't think you're going to drive down a street and see, you may enjoy it if you drove down a street and seen 20 of your signs in 20 yards, but I don't think it's going to be overwhelming or overbearing. I got one email from a constituent that said, I hope you guys have the backbone to stick with this and take these signs down. But my comment to him was, have you ever, or do you own a business? And he did not. I own a business. I know what it's like. I've got signs out in front of my business. You can't survive without a customer coming through the door. And, you know, to me, it's private property, it's personal property, personal sign, and personal rights. And I'll support that however we need to do it until we go through the rewrite of the Land Development Code, how we could make that happen until then. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Peach?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I fully support code enforcement. I think, you know, that was a great move we made in the county to enforce our code. However, I'm a big private property rights person. You know, when I was running for this seat up here, I had signs on my property. I do not agree with signs in the public right-of-way, or, you know, stuck in the middle of the Navarre Beach sign, no snipe signs and things on rights-of-way, and things have to go. I think where we owe our staff is, and hopefully we could have a discussion on this, animated. Because having done what I did in my past life, I'm a definition guy. I've read a lot of rules and regulations, and when I read the definition of animated, produced by the creation of a series of drawings, pictures, etc., shown quickly after one another, produced through the process of animation. It's an adjective full of vivacity and spirit, lively, characterized by movement and activity. An animated scene met her eye, possessing life to animate, moving or appearing to move as if alive. I'm proud when my American flag blows in the breeze in front of my house. and I have that on private property, and I keep the flagpole height to the height that is allowed by my homeowners association. So if anything we can do to help the staff, because I applaud the staff and their efforts, it's a thankless job, but I think where we failed, and I'll use that term, and I say we, even though none of us were probably around when this code was written, was we didn't give a good enough definition of what animation is. And I think it left it open to interpretation, which is fine, but I think now in this day and age, we need to be a little more specific with what we consider animated, flashing lights, intermittent lights like things. That does distract drivers, but personally, between private property and a good definition of animation so our code enforcement officers can go out and have definitions from us, I think that's where we need to attack this.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. No comment I'll make is really probably more piggyback with what Commissioner Cole said. Listen, I get it, because I was absolutely one of the folks, like many of you, that never came to a county commissioner meeting. You're busy living your life and say, hey, now we're down here fighting for something that's passionate for us. I was right there. We all asked for tougher code enforcement. I think we all had our reasons, everywhere from the broke down boat parked in the road to, like we talk about on the truck stop out at 87, or even y'all got to hear earlier today where we've got a lady now that's paying money back to the county because we enforced an abatement. So we, I think the board clearly stands behind. We want to be able to have private property rights, but we have to have rules and regulations to do that, to make the community coherent. In January, this board unanimously agreed to revisit our entire land development code. I know that's Sean, what are we at, 15 chapters, 14, 15 chapters, 15 chapters. This is obviously one of those chapters. I'm going to say this was sort of an unintended consequence. This was never discussed as far as specifically, hey, what about these signs? I emailed and called code enforcement about, I can tell you around the PACE community, it had just gotten to the point of frustration that I was having, the brink of, look, these signs are everywhere. I was pulling up the stop signs and counting 8, 9, 10 signs all at every stop sign, and it's just, that's not the community that me or many folks that I represent, I think, want to deal with. The fact of the floater signs, that quite frankly, I don't know that, to be honest with you, that I even knew that was against the land development code. And the reason I say that is we weren't enforcing it for all these years. Now, I don't know, because I wasn't on the board, why years ago, however long that's been, we decided not to enforce it. I don't know. I wasn't here. I can say clearly I came to this board in January, I believe, or maybe February, and asked for us to go back and revisit Article D under 8.09, which is a rooftop sign. The board agreed to basically put a stay on enforcement until the land development code was sorted out. When this first started happening, I called Donna with our chamber up here, our president chamber, and had asked for input. She had actually told me that one fellow commissioner, Commissioner Salter, had already beat me to the punch of asking the chamber for input. So now I guess that's where we're stuck with the sort of the legal sticky part of, we're going through this rewrite and we're asking our chambers for help and business owners. I mean, clearly, and I want to give this plug, this board has shown, I'm proud of these guys. They have shown me how much they do support y'all. We just put aside $50,000 a year to help small businesses with their facades and signages through that Strive grant, and I hope all of y'all heard about that. So I don't think it was the intention at all of this board, and that's why I'm going to say unintended consequences. And I say that because I know a lot of folks, and I apologize even for anybody that was portrayed in a manner that was unfavorable to them with some of the news media and other things that happened, for any negativity caused by the business that maybe we didn't intend. But really, out of those items listed, the only two that I would having sort of a heartburn, or hopefully we look at, are the one that Commissioner Peach mentioned with animated signs, Section B, and then Section D on rooftop signs. I can totally understand the flashing or intermittent light and inappropriate items and everything else. Then I guess it comes down to the fact of really, does this board want to allow the feather flag signs, and is that covered? And so at this point, I guess this is a decision that our board needs to. I don't like. Even though I asked for it, I'm telling you, I asked even for the one on the rooftop. I have since learned why I don't like asking for legal reasons our board to say, hey, listen, I don't want you to enforce this part of the code, but I know that we do have that right. We are developing it. In hindsight, I've spoken with Dan. If I say it in private, I'll say it in public. I wish we maybe would have waited on this portion until the land development code was rewritten, but we really couldn't, because what he mentioned in the backup was this all originated from a complaint that was received, and code enforcement followed the rules. So I think what the business community is asking, from what I'm hearing clearly and what we owe to our staff, is basically for us to say whether or not we want to put a stay on enforcement of item B, the animated signs, until at least the land development code is concluded. If the land development code is concluded and the chambers come out and tell me that, hey, overwhelmingly, we think this is something that should be done away with, that may be a tough decision, but I would very well be prepared to support it at that point. And I sure can't speak for these other four gentlemen beside me, but if they come back and say, hey, we're good with this, then that would be a moot point. But I think, if I'm gathering right, that is what our business community is asking us for today, is are we going to continue enforcing really this one particular item is the only one we're hearing about. Are we going to enforce this from now until October when this code is revised? And will it be revised to change? I don't know. I mean, that's a long road ahead of us that I think we're about to start having some serious conversations over. Or do we want to tell Dan and the folks under him that this is where we want to continue to go? But clearly, unless I'm misled, that's really what our business community is asking from us today. Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't like the stay part of that. Is there a way we could define animated and agree to that? So it's not open to interpretation and just keep it as is? I mean, I'm trying to find a way that we don't pick and choose which laws we enforce, but maybe we can define it easier, or say use Webster's definition of animated. I'm just looking for a solution other than putting a stay, because like I said, we set a precedent by saying, oh, don't enforce this, don't enforce that. So it's just a question.
Just let me jump in real quick. Doesn't it extend beyond the fact that it's animated or not? It's a portable sign, and portable signs have to be permitted, and you can put a portable sign up for 30 days every 6 months. That's in D. And banner signs are covered in E with the same proviso. You can put them up for 30 days every 6 months. You just have to get a permit. So I think we have two different things that we have to think about. And our land development code, I think, reflects what a lot of people would consider the intent of a banner sign, is to advertise a special event or a grand opening or a change of season. We're bringing out our fall menu at the restaurant or what have you, rather than a sign that's up 12 months a year. Because you're trying to bring attention when you have a feather sign or something like that. So it's not just the fact that it blows in the wind and could be considered animated, it's the fact that it's a portable sign or a banner sign, either one of those. So they're permitted, they just have to be permitted. You have to get a permit for each instance.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Sean Ward, Planning and Zoning Director for Santa Rosa County. So we talked about the definition of an animated sign. It's actually in Article 3 of the Land Development Code under signage. It states an animated sign is a sign with physical, including wind-actuated elements, rotating, overhauling, fluttering, or swinging signs, but excluding banners, governmental signs, and tri-vision billboards. So that's the definition there for your animated signs. I just wanted to provide, so I've reached out with the Chamber as well as part of the Land Development Code update. I've been taking a look, obviously, at other codes, and just to kind of give you some references regarding the definitions, they could be blade signs, feather signs. A lot of times what we're seeing in some of the other municipalities and counties is if they're allowed, it's based upon the road frontage. So if you have 1 or 2 signs per 50 foot of road frontage, if you have multiple tenants, you can have up to 4 signs and things of that nature. So those are looking at some of our other counties, municipalities. Clay County, it's prohibited. Columbia County, no reference. Hernando County, no reference. Martin County, prohibited. Okaloosa County, wind signs are prohibited. Panama City Beach, prohibited. Signage really is, across the country is an issue that we deal with. A lot of times it's the question of whether or not you want that type of an amenity in the character of the neighborhood on whether or not it's allowed or not. It's not a marketing scheme or things in that sense as it goes there. Just because you have a feather sign in front of your property doesn't mean that somebody's going to come out and visit your business. And just for clarification regarding the cellular nerd, I was the first one to actually place a code enforcement question on his property. The itinerant vendor application had not been submitted. That's why he's going to the zoning board Thursday night to ask for a variance, a setback variance. He also had 4x8 signage all the way down US 98, State Road 87 south. So I was driving to a meeting with Commissioner Parker. I saw these billboards that looked like candidate signs sitting on the side, propped up against DOT fences, retention ponds and such. So it was myself that actually implemented that and that request for enforcement against them. But I'll be more than happy to address any further questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
We're not going to sit here and rewrite the land development code in the next 10 minutes, but I think our businesses need, and staff needs directions. I think at this time, the simplest thing to do would be just signs on private property will not be enforced until we rewrite this code. And that would take care of, if I go to somebody and want to put one of their little signs in my front yard, and the key thing here is going to be private property. I mean,
pretty much all of our regulation of signs is on private property other than outlawing any signs in the right-of-way. That would, if you just say that you can do anything on private property, you're going to have billboard companies here. If you're going to do something, I would keep it as minimal as possible.
well, help me with this then. How do we give staff some direction? Yeah, I don't want billboard companies coming and putting one in every parking lot. So how do we get to where we need to be? How do we allow these businesses to continue operating as they see fit? If I drive by a business and they got a bunch of gaudy looking signs up there, it's my choice as a consumer whether I like their gaudy signs or not and drive into their business.
Well, it's difficult to, as you say, rewrite the code on the fly. I would say that the board would have the ability to construe the animated sign prohibition to allow feather signs would be the maximum ability at this point, and then we can work on that definition, which is pretty clear, but we can work on that definition as we go forward with the land development regulations. But I don't think that you want to open Pandora's box.
No, wasn't my intent, but I also don't want these guys out in the field trying to figure out what we meant, or staff trying to figure out what we meant. I'd just like to give something today that's clear cut until we have a chance to rewrite this. And if that's the case, we just withdraw the feather signs. I'm good with that. That doesn't address the small signs in a personal yard. I'm trying to look at something where we don't have multiple do this, just one blanket, and it doesn't look like a blanket's going to fit it. So,
well, there are a number of allowable temporary signs. One in regard to your swimming pool or whatever is an allowable sign as long as you go through the permitting process, and there are restrictions on that are in the land development regulations presently. So again, the least interference with existing regulations, the better for me.
I would add that 81% of the business owners complied when they were informed of the regulation. I think there's an appropriate period of time the chambers are engaged, as has been stated, to review this. Sean is doing the benchmarking and comparing to other local jurisdictions to figure out what is allowable in other places in the state. This is about, to me, what do we want to look like? What do we want Santa Rosa County to look like? It's not necessarily a safety, it's an appearance as well. And so I would suggest that we leave the code as it is and let that process work over the next 6 months. Sean's working on that now. The chambers, like I said, are participating.
Commissioner Saul.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's our intent to harm business. You heard Sean talk about other counties and other municipalities. They have a lot of stronger rules in place than we do. You know, laws and rules aren't for the people who comply. They're for the ones who violate the law, like a speed limit. I don't want Santa Rosa County to be a trash county, but at the same time, I want to be able to support business. That's why I reached out to the chamber early on and asked them to get with their members and put together a position paper. And they did a poll of a lot of their chamber members, business owners, and a lot of those business owners said, we don't want Santa Rosa County to be trashy. We think too many signs are too many signs. They're coming back saying maybe 2 feathered signs. Coming back with good recommendations that keep the county a wonderful place to live. So I recommend continuing to work with the chamber, help put together a position paper. Let's make something positive out of this and not something detrimental. Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Salter there, and what Dan said. It's about reducing the visual clutter that we see driving up and down Highway 98, Highway 90, because there are times where it's overwhelming, between banners and snipe signs and flags and everything. I have received far more complaints over the years from people who are not happy with the temporary signs, the banners and the flags, than from a business owner who wanted to put out something that was not allowed. And I have not received any complaints from businesses in my district since the enforcement sweep started.
Good morning. Just give me your name and address.
Ashley Deering, 2723 Baywatch Court, Navarre, Florida, 32566. I'm one of the business owners that actually complied with taking my sign down. And this wasn't an animated sign, it was a business sign. And I did that because I'm the only employee. I work for myself, I'm by myself. I couldn't afford to pay any fines. You know, I'm trying to make it, I'm in 2 years in business, and my sign was up for over 1.5 years before I got notified that I was out of compliance for having it. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So that's the reason that I complied. I'm one of the 80% that complied with this. And also, I wanted to say that my situation's a little different. My sign was on private property, but I have a residential business. My residential business is zoned for commercial and residential, and there is no understanding in any of the codes what is enforced over the other, whether it's residential or commercial. I was told, and I've never seen anything in writing, but I was told that since it was established as a residential property, that's what they're going to enforce. But I guess I just don't really understand why, how I can be zoned for both residential and commercial, and the county can pick and choose which code violations that they can hit me with, because so
Are you zoned neighborhood commercial? Is that your zoning district?
Well,
now?
my property actually falls, it's on 399, and my property is zoned for commercial and residential.
So is it neighborhood commercial?
Is it, I'm sorry, neighborhood commercial?
Is it zoned neighborhood commercial or HCD or residential?
It's, well, when you look on the zoning map, it just says residential/commercial.
Yeah, that would not, there is a there's a zoning classification for your property. It's either HCD or neighborhood commercial or residential.
Okay, I would have to look further into that.
And that would, Sean, that's going to tell you what your signage regulations are, because there's a certain, there are different regulations that apply to neighborhood commercial versus HCD.
I know, which is why I'm kind of out of, like, it's not as relevant, but still the same thing happened to me, but my sign wasn't facing my residential neighborhood. It was on the highway, facing the highway, and I guess a neighbor had complained about it, saying that it was tacky, and there's literally a junkyard across the highway. So I don't understand how my professional sign that I paid a lot of money for was tacky, and this junkyard that has stuff piled up is not. And so I guess I just wanted to make that statement. I need to do some more research on it as well. I did comply and take the sign down, but if it's on private property and it's, you know, it's not bothering anyone, I don't understand why I can't have that sign up. It's more of a point of reference than an advertisement for me, so that people know where I'm at and they can find me easily. So thank you for your time.
No, thank you, and if you'll make sure Sean will get with you and try to figure that out a little bit more. Again, this is, I know, a tough situation even for me. I've not only wrote many speeding tickets, but also given many warnings to folks, and I'm a case-by-case kind of guy when it comes to that. But you know, this is one of those things where it'd have been great if it would have been being enforced the last 5 years, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But I can. It is a weird conundrum for me when you take a code and it's on the book, but then all of a sudden you go from 0 to 60 on enforcing it and trying to feather through that. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add something. I listened to Sean talk about saying I had 4x8 signs all the way down 87 and things like that. I kind of feel like I'm probably one of the people that started this whole thing, you know, with Sean's anonymous tip to start everything with the itinerant vendor through Facebook and all that. You know, I've been kind of policed through Facebook by Sean and Nathan. But I've never even owned a 4x8 sign. The biggest sign I've ever paid for, which Daryl Ron the sign man, I provide all my invoices for every sign I've ever bought in my life. I've never had a sign over 2 foot by 3 foot, and none of those signs were off of private property. You know, Bart Pullum's one of my really good customers and allowed me to put signs out there, and you know, that may be where it came from, but they by no means were 4x8 signs, and they were all built to where they would withstand the weather on private property. And I think that's the hardest thing for me, is being told that if it's private property with consent of the property owner, or if the person owns that property, I don't see where Sean or Nathan or anyone else should be able to make that call, what's done with private property. You know, I understand keeping the roads clean and not being tacky. I totally get that, but these guys aren't going after the guys that are making your roads tacky. When you pull up the guy that wants to buy houses and all the handwritten signs, go to Bell and Cyanamid, or, you know, I could point out 1,000 places. They're not going after those guys. They're going after the guys that are on social media that are trying to make a presence for themselves, like myself. You know, I'm a target because in Santa Rosa County, I'm all over social media. I have a huge hype behind my business right now because it's new and exciting, and by that I made myself a target. But if I'm the guy trying to buy junk cars, it might take him 3 months to even find me because I'm handwriting signs trying to buy junk cars. And I think that's really where you guys' problem is with the people putting all those snipe signs. Like every one of you guys said, you know, you pull up to a stop sign, we all agree that's horribly tacky. And in the beginning, I was guilty of that. I did not understand the code. I just started my business and I was trying to throw everything at the wall to see what stuck. And I accept responsibility for the mistakes I made there. But I think with complying and trying to be on private property, have consent for everything, and make everything tasteful, I think there should be some sort of give to that, because, you know, whether we'll admit it or not, there are certain businesses that code enforcement does selectively enforce. You know, it's not like they go out and enforce everything. I mean, we could drive down every trailer park in Navarre and pick out 1,000 things that should be enforced daily, but God forbid, if I go stick a sign somewhere that Bart tells me I can, I guarantee you I'll hear from these guys in 3 days.
And so I want to address a couple things and kind of, so our board, again, just, what was that, Dan, within the last 2 months, made the decision to go from code compliance to code enforcement.
It was about the first of the year, yes, sir.
And really, every commissioner up here echoes the fact that we had a problem. We had code compliance issues everywhere from, as you mentioned, mobile home parks to everything.
Yeah.
And previous boards have made a decision that we were going to be complaint driven. And it got so out of hand that now we're coming back into enforcement. It's probably the best way I can describe it, and again, I want to say is, as Roy mentioned, where you said private property, I'll be the first to say I would vote against any insinuation that, yeah, we're just going to put any business sign you want on your private thing, and now every residential neighborhood I've turned down, I got various signs.
Yeah, I understand.
So we do regulate private property. We regulate the way things look aesthetically. So again, the hardest part for me is because we sort of went 0 to 60, and this was on the books, and it's something that even I've been on the board 2.5 years, and it has been allowable, and so that's the hard part for me. But as Commissioner Salter stated, and I use a perfect reference, is we have people come to these meetings very often, and they want us to spend money to put in speed humps. Well, the only reason they're asking for speed humps is because they say, well, people aren't obeying the speed limit. And so then they want us to get more aggressive. That's the hard part, is we have to pass blanket policies, not for some businesses that say, I had a gentleman in my district, he called me and said, Sam, I was upset. He said the guy told me to take them down, and my signs look good. He said, and then I've got, Lord, I don't want to pick on them, but I'll use this, the first one that comes to my mind. I think I've got 4 or 5 Asian massage businesses that have in my district have started since I got elected, and I drove past one and it had 4 feather flags on a 110-foot wide lot, and they're faded and just sitting there, and that's not the image that the guy that just built the $2 or $3 million building a quarter mile down the road wants to project. So we are sort of forced to have these blanket policies. Commissioner Salter and I clearly thought the same way, because unbeknownst to each other, we both reached out to the chamber and said, hey, we want feedback. Now my issue comes is again, really the only question for me today is how do we proceed between now and October? Because in October, I will have heard a clear voice from not only all of you, but also hopefully we have well over 1,000 businesses that are members of Santa Rosa, Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Pace area chambers of commerces, and that will give us time to have that collective voice and to know. But again, we're in a predicament where we're enforcing this, and I think again the biggest backlash was probably sort of the way we handled it too. It could have been, hey, this is, but that's what's tough. I mean, there's a code on the book, so I think for me the biggest question goes back to why was it not being enforced before? Maybe it would help me better understand, but again, I know that's really not for y'all, and you kind of don't care. You just want to know, hey, what can we do? If the blanket issue is could we, and I think what Commissioner Salter was alluding to is could we have businesses that would voluntarily come into compliance with the code and then work with the chambers to come back as we rewrite this land development code? Because we're tackling issues such as signs were honestly probably the last thing that any of us thought about when we thought about land development code. We're thinking about drainage issues, and stormwater issues, and dirt pit issues, and billboard issues, and so I guess signs were on there, but we're tackling all those. But again, it's hard for an attorney or even folks, that's like me being when I was a sheriff's deputy, and I'm pretty sure these guys in here have never had the sheriff come and say, well, let's just skip over chapter 475 right now because the citizens are mad because it's click it or ticket week. And so I never had that. And so I can appreciate, kind of like Commissioner Peach said, the staff needs direction. I can't I can't tell a guy I want more enforcement and then say, well, I don't enforce that one. And then the land development code amendments, I think the quickest possible way to make a change on that, and we've kind of crossed this bridge before, is probably a 3-month process legally. So I guess right now, what I'm looking for is, and again, we can, obviously it'll move to Thursday no matter what, I guess if the board wants to take action, but does the board want to take action to the reference of what Roy said, to where we basically say maybe for now that we're going to consider animated signs would be, could be a feather flag sign, and somebody here could tell me a rough dimension so that we could sort of hammer that down, and it wouldn't just be that next thing you know we got a 10-foot by 20-foot feather flag sign? Or does the will of the board say we want to enforce it and wait and hear back from the chambers? But
I'm not willing to wait that long. I know it's going to take us 6 months. If we can do something about the animated flags and to keep somebody from putting billboards up on every piece of property, all of a sudden limit the square footage, signs on private property, a person could have signs up to a total of 24 square feet. So if you put a 4x4, that's 16 square feet out of your 24. And if you put up a feather flag that was 2 foot wide and 6 foot tall, that's 12 square feet. Some sort of parameters like that, that way somebody can't go down there and put up 20 feather flags, put a cap on the square footage.
That's already covered in the Land Development Code, sir, in Article 8 in a separate section. What we're talking about is the section on prohibited signs.
Yeah.
And these, by definition of animated, are a prohibited sign.
if you will, give me just a second so that I know. I feel like we've been on a sort of stalemate. I don't play chess enough anymore, but from the comments I've heard, I'll just ask Commissioner Peachert. I feel like, so that I know the will, would you like to see us exempt for the time being feather flags of not being considered animated signs for now? Or I just kind of got to know where the board's going here, guys. I've talked all I can talk on it.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, it gets tough because in our own resolution we read to the military, we encourage the flying of flags. So I guess, this is where those 7 layers of separation come in, is what's a flag, what's a feather flag, and there's going to be someone out there that goes, well, this is a flag, this one isn't, this is a U.S. Air Force flag, it's not an American flag. It's tough. Our land development code definitely needs some clear definition and guidance. It's just, like I said, my fellow commissioners have pointed out some great points on all this, and it's difficult. I don't like the tattered signs at all, the snipe signs. There's some feather flags that you can't even read. I would like to see that enforced. That's a sign in disrepair. That should be. But again, it's not a quick fix, change the land development code, and we got Sean working hard on that. So I'm open to suggestion. Like I said, we can't open Pandora's box, and I think Commissioner Cole's, you've all brought up some great points. So I would like to find some happy medium to where, until we can get the land development code straightened out and taken into account. But I'm really at a loss to what to propose. I'm open to suggestion to where we can get there. So I'm
Commissioner Lynch.
Confused.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't feel comfortable amending the land development code on the fly. There are always unintended consequences. If we say, okay, you can have it on private property, limited to 32 feet of sign, what about the guy who owns property on Highway 98 and says, okay, hey, this is a good way for me to make some money. Yeah, you can put a sign on my property. And all of a sudden, people are making money off of essentially billboard advertising. That's why we have that prohibition in the code on private signs on or off-premise signs. So I don't think we can amend it on the fly. If we were to simply say that flag signs are not animated signs, well, then they become portable signs and are subject to permitting and a 30-day limitation on use every 6 months. So we could do that, and the business owners can utilize their flag signs. You just have, you have to permit it, and you can only use it for essentially special events.
Sean?
Sorry. I think something we could do is we could certainly bring back an amendment to the Land Development Code if that's the wishes of the board. We do have examples specifically regarding feather signs. We're not talking about, billboards on properties. That's already defined in the Land Development Code. We're not talking about the snipe signs. Those are already prohibited, and based on, kind of the direction of this board, we're going to continue to prohibit those, and we don't want those within residential areas and everything like that. It basically would regard feather signs for a business in front of their business. We can base it on street frontage and limit those based on the number of street frontage. That's kind of the direction that I've had with the chambers as well, and the development community in a sense. So I think, for instance, Escambia County right now says that blade or feather signs, pole-supported blade or feather signs is accessory to the authorized business, and they allow basically 3 feet in width, 12 foot in height. I mean, it's very specific, and a maximum of one flag per 50 foot of street frontage parcel. I mean, so I think, in a maximum of 3. So those are the type of definitions that we can look at. We can certainly take something to the zoning board, probably within the next couple of months, and then bring it back to this board. But it had been previously the county administrator's direction not to kind of piecemeal these land development code changes and bring everything together as one. So that's why we have not been bringing individual land development code changes to you one-on-one. It's been pretty much trying to bring everything together as a package.
Mr. Chairman, I like just what I heard. And if we rewrite that between, in the end product, that's different. But I think for the immediate need, if Sean can bring that back for us to vote on Thursday, I think that covers where I was trying to get to anyway. I don't want to see, like Lane said, run down the street and rent a piece of property and stick up a bunch of signs. I don't want to see billboards on, I think the main thing is answering the immediate concern of the businesses. And I think what Sean just explained to us provides that.
My understanding is, though, it couldn't happen on Thursday because it's an amendment to the Land Development Code, so it'll have to go through the process, public notice, go through the Planning and Zoning Board, and then come to us.
Until then, can we do like we did with the rooftop and just pull back on enforcement, concentrate on the other signs, the snipe signs, other things that we need to deal with, and just kind of give direction to kind of be a little easier on this part of it. We've done it for the rooftop sign down at the gun shop. I don't see why we can't extend that. And I think that's what our businesses want to see, and certainly the numbers, we've issued so many and only had so many complaints, but just like the lady out there said, either they don't have the money to complain, they don't have the time to complain. James is fortunate. Like James says, we all know James. Step on his toes, he's going to step back. So, how many businesses out there that can't take that time? So.
I just want to put it out there too. I've had a bunch of people texting me with saying they're watching this online right now, and I'll be glad to show you on my phone. There's a lot of people that couldn't make it today that are here, and there is some in your district, Mr. Lynchard, that have talked to me. They're in the same boat as Ashley Burke was. They can't afford the fine. So when your officer comes down and says, hey, I'm going to fine you, either you comply with what I say, or I'm going to fine you. As a police officer would come down and tell you standing in front of you, you either do what I tell you to do, or I'm going to take your butt to jail. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to stop. You're going to put your sign away and say, hey, I'm not going to fight that fight. Well, there's people out there that won't fight that fight, but I'll be the voice for us as a small business to fight that fight for those people who are not willing to. I'll go to Mr. Lynch's district. I'll go to Mr. Salzer's district. I'll go to Mr. Parker's district, Bob's, and I'll go to my district in Santa Rosa County. We're not going to sit back and say, hey, you guys are 100% right, because we're not 100% right. Me as a person, I'm never 100% right. I will be the first one to tell you I say stupid things, I do stupid things. So at the end of the day, if someone picks up the phone and calls me and says, hey, James, will you represent me? I'm going to be, yep, I'm on board. What you need me to do? Because I will come back in front of you until we get an issue resolved for the small business people in Santa Rosa County to stand up and say, hey, we're done. You want from us, you better give back to us. Because we're not going to continue, I'm not going to continue to say, you went in front of us and Sean, he knows for a fact, 110%. A development order was given to me telling me I could build on my property in South Santa Rosa County, given to me when Ms. Statler was here. Comes back to me a year later and tells me that, we made a mistake. You can't build that development that you want to build because we now have, we had a scenic corridor that has to be 15 foot in conjunction of each other, and the plans that you submitted were overlooked and you can't follow them plans. I mean, we all make mistakes. It's our property. We pay the taxes to keep you guys where you're at. And until we stand together and say we're done and fight back, you guys are going to continue to win. I'm not saying when I reference you guys, I'm referencing the ordinances that are getting written by someone who don't own a business.
We're getting way off the subject. You keep saying you guys did this and you guys did that. Everything in this code represents other people as well.
Correct.
So it's
I
not
made
us.
that point. No, I made that point, Mr. Salter. I said you guys, and then I referenced
It wouldn't be
other
here if other people had not wanted it in place.
Right.
So our goal now is to work with the businesses, work with the chambers of commerce, and let's get something we can all.
And I will say, instead of using you guys, I will say the county in general. The staff, most of the staff knows me. I don't know Mr. Dan. I haven't met him yet, but I'm sure I'll be getting to meet you here soon. But at the end of the day,
we're trying to find something that works.
I want to work with you guys, and I think all the small business owners do too. So let's just try to figure it out. And I agree with what Bob's saying. I agree with what Sean just said. You know, if we can come up with but going back to the same thing, one more time I'll say it, and then I'll leave it alone. There's a way around it. Okay, so now I got a temporary sign I'm going to put on a trailer. I'm going to go get that trailer tagged, and I'm going to park that trailer right in front of my business. It's legal. There's nothing you can do about it. Absolutely nothing. I can go out there and change my lettering, but now you have a trailer sitting out there. That's a boat trailer. And you know where I'm talking about. I don't have to tell you. That is 110% legal, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
Thank you. I don't know that we've really had, basically Commissioner Cole has asked that we could, I think the clearest thing I've heard today is maybe could we just ask staff to not enforce, well, I've heard from both sides, to just not enforce the feather flags until which time we had the chance to decide if the Land Development Code was going to keep that a prohibition or not. I don't know if we've...
Well, not to complicate the issue, Mr. Chairman, but we have citations that have been issued and citations that have been paid on this same issue. So that has to be part of this decision or direction that's coming from the board.
I'll make a motion if you want me to, or you want to give it a whack?
I don't know that mine will be the same as yours. You know, we also have to remember and recognize that there is another side of the coin. And I have received calls from citizens who have noticed the reduction in signage and flags, feather signs along the corridor, and they appreciate that. So rather than amend our land development code on the fly without notice to anyone, I don't think we need to do anything. I think we continue to work with the chambers of commerce, reach out to the business community and the citizen groups that are interested in this provision in the land development code and that care about the appearance of their community, and then see where we end up when we revisit this part of the code a couple months down the road. I just don't, I don't feel comfortable amending it on the fly. We have code that's in place. Enforcement has taken a step up, obviously. And there have been people who've complained about that. There have been people who have agreed with that. But that is status quo. I don't think we can change the status quo right now without more notice and hearing and following the appropriate process. So I would support not taking any action on Thursday.
I guess you was right.
Commissioner Salford.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Leonard. It's not that we're not hearing y'all. We are hearing y'all. And we're gonna come up with something that's better than what it is now. We are listening to y'all. But you have to work through a process. We can't just change things every commissioner meeting, especially the Land Development Code. So we are listening. We are hearing you. That's why we're working with the Chambers of Commerce, who represent the voice of small business. And I've heard 2 or 3 times today, why did y'all just start enforcing the code now? 2007, we went through a major recession. We laid off 104 employees, and guess where most of them came from? All of them probably came out of code enforcement. Well, but that's something we had to do. So that's why we haven't enforced it, because we had to lay off so many employees. And now we're starting to get back to a point in time where we're representing all the citizens. But we are listening to the business community. Just give us a chance to do it the right way. Thank you. I support Commissioner Leonard.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. I could support that if it wasn't, we were just not facing the summertime and the time that a lot of these businesses are, going to make their most profit over the summer. If we're going into the fall or something, I could understand it. And I don't want to just rewrite the code on the fly. But I think something needs done more immediate than waiting 6 months. I like what Sean said and the way it read, and if somehow we could express that to code enforcement that, this is basically, or through staff, this is how we want to do this for the next 6 months. And as far as citations issued and fines paid, it's as simple as revoking the citations and paying them back for their fines. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, but something needs to be done, I think, more rapidly than 6 months. There again, we did it for the rooftop sign. I don't see why we can't do it for a flag sign. And certainly the snipe signs, the nuisance signs and stuff, we stay on those. Start working on that, because I'm sure a lot of citizens, if they were polled, would probably say, yeah, that's the snipe signs that I'm glad to see gone. The feather signs really didn't bother me. I can't answer that right now. None of us can, but to me, there's no excuse when we've heard from this many businesses for us not to take some sort of action to allow them to use these signs over the summertime and get input and get things moving forward, so we can get this rewrite done. So I would make the motion that we take Sean's comments, pass them to staff to tell code enforcement this is the direction we want you to take until this becomes permanent or any changes become permanent. Withdraw the citations and give refunds for those that paid, and I'll put that in the form of a motion. If I get a second, fine. If not, then
not verbatim of what you're asking, but I would second a motion that said until the land development code is updated, in which time it may be found that it's prohibited or not. But I would second the motion that we don't enforce the feather signs on premise of property. And I guess here's the reason why. I think in a way we're opening ourselves up to litigation from other codes by continuing to do stays, and I don't think that that's good. My hardest part is, I don't know, I'm trying to sort of put my old law enforcement hat on from what I can remember, is even though this is an existing code, this is the first time it's been enforced to our knowledge, especially on a large scale, and so it feels new. You know, I can definitely speak for me and Commissioner Peach. This has not been anything that's been brought up before in his tenure. I don't believe it's been brought up before in my tenure, other than the one time where we discussed rooftop. And so to us, or at least to me, it feels like a new code, and that's the tough part. Is we're enforcing something that's on the books, but quite frankly, me and many of the business owners didn't even know it was on the books. And so I would support that. I think a little bit more restricted, maybe. I don't want to say that we tell Sean to go give staff direction to follow another code, not a minute. But if we said, hey, we want to just not enforce the feather flag at the moment on premise signs, I think that would quell 99% of the issues I've heard and have read about. It's just folks that said, hey, I had a sign and the guy showed up one day and said I got a week to take the sign down, or I'm getting a violation. And that's one of those things where, again, looking back, I wish we could have rolled out a little different, but it is hard because this is on the books. And it's no different. I'll give you a perfect example. I know there's no way, because I haven't seen the enforcement. If Sheriff Johnson went and told all his guys today, any traffic but, I want you to sit here at the red light, and any cigarette butt you see come out the window, I want tickets. They could write 50, 100 tickets in a day, and you'd have sort of that ripple effect. I'm not saying it'd be negative, because I'm all about stopping the litter, and I used to write those tickets. But what I'm saying is, it's redirecting. It's redirecting allocations of resources, and that's what has happened here. I could find statutes in a book that's that thick that we give out to new deputies that, you know, I was a training officer, and there's a lot of the statutes guys don't even know about until you show them, and you're like, oh, here's a new code. And so this feels new to me, and that's why I would support that. I don't want to get into that we're limiting it or whatever. I would just, as Shauna mentioned, but I would support if we just said, hey, we're not going to enforce feather flags on-premise businesses at this point until the land development code is written. And I hate to keep putting stays, but again, as we're finding out more and more stuff, just like we had the guy in here in Commissioner Peach's district, and he's got a lawn business, and now we're like, man, we don't want to shut the lawn business guy down, but our land development code had an issue, and we're seeing it with, well, I've got a business in my district. I've got Arcadia Culverts. The guy's been in business for years and years and years, and now land development code, we've had some change of staff and some issues, and the zoning board basically did what me and Commissioner Cole are asking. It went to the zoning board, and they said, you know what, I mean, I watched the meeting, I've talked with some folks that said, nah, we really don't want to tackle this, so we're just going to table it until the land development code is amended. So I would support that.
How about if I try and make it just a lot more simpler? Just continue doing what we're doing, but instead of 30 days, make it, you got 180 days to comply. Here's your warning, you have 180 days to comply, refund those that have been cited and fined, extend the existing citations to 180 days. That gets us past the 6 months to rewrite the LDC and makes it about as simple as I can think to make it.
I'll second that motion. Commissioner Peach, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult position. I've been looking through some of the ordinances, and if we started enforcing every ordinance, my district would go into a tizzy over some of the ordinances on the books that I'm going to discuss with staff, but I could support that. Write the violations, extend that time frame a little bit till we can give our staff clear direction and work with the local communities on doing that, because there's a lot of codes out there that I like to see enforced more as well. You know, I get a lot of complaints about rundown homes and trash on in people's neighborhoods and things. So if we could continue to write the violations and just extend that time to bring it to resolution, I could support that.
And I want to verify, that's just for the feather flag issue. Again,
That's the sign ordinance period.
The sign ordinance period?
That's simple, make it simple for staff, don't.
Okay.
Would that make it simple?
I just
No, that's not going to make it simple.
I want to make sure that on these snipe signs, I've actually noticed we just had a guy open up selling I guess, the marijuana oil or whatever, CBD. And over the weekend, I've got every intersection in my district I drove past this morning. And every stop sign has got these new CBD signs. And quite frankly, that's something I was going to ask staff, not only to throw them away, but also I hope that we can start getting to the point where when we throw them away and they pop back up the next week, that we're finding them. So if it comes in to where they tell me, hey, if it's live with both or get one or the other, then no, and that goes, I don't know. So Roy,
We don't need to delay enforcement of our entire sign ordinance.
Just the prohibited part?
Just feather flags if you're going to deal with that issue. Deal with that only.
Okay.
I can't support that. I mean, the original complaint came in from a business in my district that is complying with the code and was complaining about non-compliant businesses on Highway 98. So you've got someone who's trying to do the right thing and comply with the code and has an extremely nice development down there, and they're trying to make the area look better. They're making the area look better, and they're trying to ensure that we enforce the codes that are on the books.
and you good with having it for just feather flags?
Yeah.
The 180 day?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Commissioner Peach, you still comfortable with the 180 days for just the feather flags?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am.
All right. Then, Dan, is that good enough for staff direction? I mean, there's really, again, this is a staff direction thing. Code's already there. I don't see any reason that we move that to Thursday. Is that good enough direction?
I think we need an action to either, to refund, because money's been collected, so if that could be included in the...
That was
All right,
part of
in the
my
motion.
motion. I'll just withdraw it from being the entire code to just the feather flag portion.
And refund it.
And the refund and the extension on the existing citations.
Let me write that up for Thursday. If we could leave it on the regular agenda, I'll write it up, because and specifically cite 80900 paragraph B, animated signs, and put a little clarity to that, and we can leave it on the regular agenda, would be my suggestion, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I got that in form of motion
To move to Thursday.
to move to Thursday.
I'll second it. I believe Commissioner Peach just said he was a third vote, so not to delay it, we'll move that to Thursday's regular agenda. No? All right. All right. We'll go ahead and call it. All those in favor of Commissioner Cole's motion signify by raising the right hand. All right. All those opposed, like sign. Move it to Thursday. All right. So it's moved to Thursday's regular agenda item. That's why we had to get to Thursday at 9 o'clock. And Dan said he'll come back at that time with I guess, to have the wordage.
I'll update the action in the agenda that we'll publish on Wednesday, and we're meeting in Tiger Point on Thursday.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. I would have probably been here.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Sullivan.
I remember the meeting when we all discussed
It's going to be a tie.
setting up code compliance versus enforcement. I would just remind each commissioner how adamant you were about enforcement versus compliance. Let's take a break, please.
All right. Hang on. I think Commissioner Cole.
Yeah, I got one thing. I won't be able to be here Thursday. Is this thing going to be a stalemate on Thursday?
Quite possibly.
All right. All right. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 10:40. right. Well, we've lost our military members and most of our small business folks, but thank you for those that are still with us. We appreciate you staying with us till after the break. We have moved item number 8 to Thursday's regular agenda. Item number 9 is the FERDAP Grant Award, Baghdad Recreation Park Improvements. This is a discussion of acceptance and approval of the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program, otherwise known as FERDAP, grant agreement in the amount of $250,000. This is for improvements to the Baghdad Recreation Park, not the mill site park, but the recreation park over there, I believe, where the community center is. And this is including an allocation of $250,000 in matching funds from District 2 Rec Fund. Do we have any comments or questions on that item? If not, I know Commissioner Cole was in great support of this, and it's exciting to see it happen. Commissioner Cole?
Just looking forward to that, and sometime in the next 60 days, I'd like to work with staff and maybe hold a evening community meeting over there to get some input.
Great idea. I know it'll be great to see that park get those improvements. And we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 10 is FERDAP Grant Award. This is for the Benny Russell Park improvements. Discussion of a similar grant, same amount, $250,000 for improvements to Benny Russell Park, including an allocation of matching funds from $250,000 from District 1 rec funds. And so we are excited to see that coming as that project comes along with the planning stages. All right, if there's no questions or comments, we will move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 11 is Child and Support Enforcement Contract Renewal with the Florida Department of Revenue. This is an extension of the Florida Department of Revenue contract CST 57 for Child Support Enforcement Program through June 30th, 2020, as the recommendations are in the backup. Are there any questions or concerns on this item? Hearing none, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 12, and highly anticipated. Dan, if you will let us know our legislative update concerning this legislative cycle.
Well, Mr. Johnson and Eric are planning to come, so I don't want to steal all of their thunder, and the governor has not taken action on the appropriations bill yet, so there's still the potential for effect to occur there. But where we currently stand is 4 of our 5 projects were funded. We received out of the appropriations bill that the legislature passed on Saturday, $250,000 for Woodbine Road design, $1 million for the June 8th Randy Brown Road connector road to open up additional industrial park space, as well as provide some public safety access in that area. $500,000 for the I-10 industrial park, expanding infrastructure, water, sewer, road, and then $250,000 for the courthouse project. The other bills of significance, the transportation bill was amended late in the session and included an adjustment of the definition of small counties and increased that number to 200,000, which is significant for us. And House Bill 5, which contained the restrictions and additions on local tax referenda, was amended in the Senate. And the 2/3 requirement was eliminated, and the effective date is the 1st of January 2020. And those are the big highlights. There were over 3,500 bills and 3,000 amendments and 3,700 plus votes taken in this legislative cycle. 196 bills passed both houses and are awaiting action from the governor, is where we stand.
Thank you, Dan. I think, too, that's good messaging that the state was so supportive of the courthouse construction that they're going to help fund that master planning. So they have recognized that is a need and a safety situation for our citizens, and that's why I believe they look so favorably upon that. So thank you so much, and we'll look forward to that update from Johnson and Blanton.
Mr. Chairman, just one.
Commissioner Peach?
What was the fifth one that didn't make it in, Dan, just for my memory?
Camden Drive.
Camden Drive.
So as we go through the budget development this year, those capital projects that we submitted that either did not get funded, like Camden Drive, or the projects that were funded but not at the requested level, I'll be building those into the annual budget and looking for other funding solutions for those projects.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. All right, no action needed on item number 12. Item number 13 is a discussion of a request for an additional part-time position for the legal department, as noted in the backup. This is not only to help with the workload, but also part of that succession planning to hopefully prepare somebody to fill the shoes when an inevitable retirement comes. Do we have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I would recommend moving that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 14 is discussion of declaration as surplus property items from Santa Rosa County Property Appraiser's Office as recommended by the Clerk of Courts. Do we have any questions or comments on this? All right, hearing none, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. And now we go to Roger for the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Our first item is a discussion of the construction plans for Forest Bay Estates, a 269-lot subdivision. It was previously approved, the preliminary plat at 294. The reduction in number of lots were due to the expansion to meet our current stormwater requirements, and we're recommending removal to approval on the consent agenda.
All right, hearing no questions or comments, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 2 is a discussion of task order 38 in the not-to-exceed amount of $46,900 from Jacob CH2M Hill to study and design and prepare construction plans and specification to rehabilitate our Peter Prince Industrial Park lift station. This main lift station for the industrial park was constructed in the late 1970s. It was modified approximately 12 years ago to divert the flow from the existing package plants, which was abandoned, and pumped to the triplex, to the Milton triplex lift station. We've had numerous pump failures. We've rebuilt those motors on several occasions, and essentially the issue is pointing to single-phase versus three-phase service. We're working with Gulf Power to provide for the three-phase. However, we'll need to redo the pumps and the control panels to install and renovate that lift station. So we recommend approval and adding it to the consent agenda.
All right, hearing no questions or comments, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
And finally, item number 3 is a discussion of accepting a proposal from WPR Inc. for the recycling hauling services to haul recyclables from Central Landfill to the ECUA Material Recycling Facility, the MRF, at Perdido Landfill in Escambia County. As you know, the board approved in our last meeting the new recycling processing agreement with ECUA. It was contingent on establishing transportation for those recyclables. We solicited proposal. WPR's proposal is that $500 per pull. They're asking for a 12-month contract with a proviso that should this contract terminate early, that they would be compensated $5,833 per month of the remaining months on the contract.
Roger, will you just, one more time, if you don't mind, walk it back through, if for nobody else, my benefit, of why we're choosing to go the hauler route versus handling this in-house?
Well, in-house, we provided a backup to each of you of our estimate of what it would cost, and that was $290,000 to purchase a walking floor trailer. One, if we go with 2 trailers, it would be a total of $370,000. This is a short-term contract. ECUA is only entered into the contract for 18 months, and again, there's that opportunity that we will not complete the 18-month contract just based on the things and the way that recycling is going. So in the interim, the decision was made to go on a temporary basis.
Let me, and I apologize if I was reading this and listening at the same time. We would have to buy the trailers,
Wait, well,
If we chose to do it in-house,
that is correct.
would we
Rent or lease?
have to buy the semi as well?
Yes, we do not have a tractor.
Okay, so I guess I was bouncing forth back between Andrew's email to you and then Mr. Russell's email to Andrew. So we'd have to buy the tractor trailer and then the hauler trailer, at least one, and then we'd have to pay the driver versus their contract to do it. We're really only guaranteeing them 12 months. That if we cut it short of the 12 months, we have to pay the $58.33, which I see is breakdown here for what the trailer costs. But if, say, on month number 13 we cancel it, then we would be out. And it sounds like that was, if I understood right, the big reason we decided not to do it in-house was we don't know the length of time that this will happen.
That is correct.
I would add, sir, the length of time and then adding personnel and that long-term tail. If we hire personnel, then we have those personnel billets. And it's hard to then separate or end the civil service, employment. It's much easier to handle via contract.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Salter?
just for clarification, I know I've seen a couple of emails where people are confused. This does not involve anyone's recycling pickup at their home.
That is correct. We are currently encouraging everyone to continue to recycle in the manner they've always done. We're sending out an ad campaign where we're asking for people to be diligent and give us clean recyclables. We're even looking at limiting some of the recycled materials that we will accept, because you, the board, and the county will establish what our program looks like in an effort to diminish and reduce the number of rejected loads at ECOA's facility.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cole?
Just a question. At some point in time, if recycling doesn't rebound, and this was brought up a couple of times in a couple of different meetings I've been at, the Asian China, Japan, all the countries that were buying recycling all they could have dried up. It's not just lessened, it's just we don't want it anymore. And of course, I agree with recycling. I think everybody here does. We see the benefits of it, but we don't see a benefit if it's just going to cost the county more, go to Escambia County, and then sit there for a while and end up in their landfill instead of ours. So I would like at some point to get indication. I don't know if we watch the market or what we do, but say 6 months from now, ask ECUA or somehow in a billing process to include some sort of information sheet to the consumer that we may become necessary to stop a recycling program for a time being, or some sort of explanation as to if we got to increase cost. That way, we're kind of priming the pump for where we need to be a year from now.
I think we're seeing those increased costs now, sir, and to what Roger pointed out. We want to make sure that we're getting clean recyclables in the pickups and then being transferred to ECUA, because if we take a load over there that's rejected, then we also incur additional costs for that rejected recycling load. So it's an education campaign that we need to put together to talk about recyclables in general and the way ahead.
All right, and that's what I want to see, something like that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, no further questions or comments. We'll move that item to Thursday's consent agenda. Thank you, Roger. All right, next we'll go to the Public Service Committee. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two items. One is discussion of issuance of an RFP for the acquisition of property for establishing a new fire station in the East Milton Fire District. Brad Baker, myself, and Mr. Shepler have been working on this for about 6 or 8 months now. We have one piece of property that's been offered up, but we need to do our due diligence on this and open this to an RFP for other possible locations. The ideal location that Mr. Baker has been able to get from evidently there's a matrix that they can put together on fire districts and national fire protection that gives us the intersection of Highway 90 and North and South Airport Road is the ideal location for the population and movement of equipment for fire suppression in that area. We've all probably been past or to the one on Ward Basin Road and know how antiquated that particular station is, and then the little substation on Highway 87 is almost as antiquated as the other one is. So with the growth we're seeing out there, I feel like it's time we do something like we did in Baghdad or something and build a new facility and get it up to date, protect our citizens. So I'd appreciate board support on moving this to Thursday consent agenda without objection.
No objection, just a question. Dan, if you could help me, I know this is needed and I am glad to see it moving forward, but want to make sure that we have the opportunity that there may be a lot of folks that have property that they would be glad to be a part and involved in this, but probably most private property owners are not signed up to receive our request for proposal emails. How will this be advertised to the public to let them know if you've got 2 acres or more in this area and you're willing to sell it to the county? Let us know. How are we going to advertise that?
It'll be advertised in the local newspapers as well as available on our website.
All right. Can we maybe have the PIO or something as well do it just a little bit more than the sad part? I just don't know how many folks truly, do read those blocks in the newspaper. I'm going to admit I love looking forward to the Press Gazette twice a week, but most times I don't even read those blocks. And I just want to make sure, again, if there's somebody that's got property that they're willing to sell, I don't want to come back and then say, well, man, I didn't even know about that. And we might could actually get a better deal, not only for the county, but a better location for the fire department.
Yeah, I'll talk with Brandy about the best way, and maybe it's not a press release, it might be a social media post that would generate that interest and get a little bit better distribution through the public.
Maybe Channel 3 will give Commissioner Cole a free plug afterwards. I want to make sure if anybody had the property they want to sell, that they just know about the process, the way it works. But, all right, hearing no other question or comment, thank you for letting me hijack that for just a minute. We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Our second item is discussion and approval of the resilience to future flooding request for proposed ideas to authorize submittal of a grant application. That's all.
So this is a planning application. We received the NACO grant for resiliency, and there's a team working on that. This is something that came up in that effort. This is for a planning grant of $40,000 to $60,000. The local match can be provided by staff time, so there's no additional cash match required, but it would allow that NACO resiliency group to take this another step and look at specific areas for resiliency planning. And it's a competitive grant, so it was just permission from the board to submit for that grant application.
And if there's no objections to that, I'll move to the consent agenda on Thursday.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes this report.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Lyncher with the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of approval of a request from Robert and Tara Parker for paving approximately 850 feet of Leisure Street at a cost of $17,342. This is kind of a single-payer MSBU situation. They'll pay for all of the materials, and the county will supply the labor to pave. Any questions, comments? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item number 2 is discussion of the installation of a stop sign on Gin Road at the intersection with Molino Bridge Road. There's been an increase in traffic in that area due to some new development out there, so Public Works believes that this will be an improvement for the safety features at that intersection. Any questions? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Peach with the Budget and Financial Management Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is Budget Amendment 2019138 for the part-time
position, Legal Department. Discussion of the budget amendment in the amount of $26,555 to fund a part-time position in the Legal Department to handle the increased workload. This goes with the agenda item we moved to Thursday's consent agenda, so if there's no further discussion, I recommend we move it to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item number 2 is a bid item for custodial services. Discussion of approval to award a contract to Executive Cleaning, Inc. in the amount of $7,154.38 per month for custodial services. And this is for county facilities, Dan?
County facilities, yes, sir.
Yep. Is there any discussion? I recommend we move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
Is this basically a continuation of the services we have or something?
We had to rebid through procurement.
Okay. All right, hearing no other questions or comments, let's move to Thursday's consent agenda.
And Mr. Chairman, check register be reviewed for your approval.
All
Move
right.
it to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other items of business that the commissioners have coming before the board? Dan?
Just a reminder, Tiger Point on Thursday.
Thank you again for that reminder at 9 o'clock. All right, with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for those of you that were able to attend.